Yep. Just outside the cusp of the top 5, right behind Amnesiac. And we've seen ETC compete in a few tour stops this year, going pretty deep. We've seen him also climb ladder, primarily known as a ladder player first, has grinded his way through the ranks. Meanwhile, Noblord, we've seen him throughout all kinds of competitions in Hearthstone. He's competed in TESPA, he's competed at, in HCT, he's competed at all at high levels, but he's also going through school, which is kind of the big thing and main focus for him for a while. But a lot of people in America agree that he is one of the most brilliant minds that's out there, even though he's only part-time.
Yeah, he's going to school, and he's also a collegiate champion of Hearthstone, winning with Rutgers a few years back, I think maybe 1.5, 2 years back. So also, ETC is coming off of a top 8 at the last playoffs. So he's had some really good performances in playoffs throughout the 2018-2019 HCT season with a top 10 and a top 8. So playoffs is kind of his jam. Also, his little bit of his backstory speaks to me. He's married and has 2 kids.
Nice.
I'm married and have 1 kid and 2 dogs, and 2 dogs is about equal to 2/3 of a kid. So.
Okay, well, that makes sense because I'm using the imperial system, not the metric system. So I was very confused on the dog to human baby ratios.
Yeah.
But thank you for educating me today, TJ.
Wow, he also has 1 dog and 1 cat is what I'm being told. Oof. So in fact, ETC actually has 2 3/8 kids.
Okay. I'll take your word for it. Clearly, the education system has failed me.
This is America's playoffs, Dan. It's failed us all.
Vote, people. Go out there and vote so that your kids can one day learn the proper conversions of cats and dog pet ownership to human child raising. It's for the future of society, people. Now, tunneling back onto this game, we have Quest, APM, Topsy-Turvy Priest up against Control Priest. And Control Priest can put on a pretty aggressive game plan, and that does give him the edge, it can give him the edge sometimes if they're able to get out to an early start. But ETC is kind of a little bit more in a passive Northshire Cleric drawing plan. Needs to be hitting those Twilight Drakes, the Scale Worm, the big fat minions that can't get answered. They can pressure the Priest and force them to have, mass hysteria, or force them to have any kind of removal if they have Psychic Screams. And it's not going to be really the case here. And Noblord's already drawn double Dead Ringer. And let me tell you something, DJ. I did a little bit of stats diving. When Topsy Priest draws Dead Ringer, their percentage of win, their win percentage jumps pretty significantly, about 10 to 15%, because of how important it is as a foundation for card draw in this deck and to complete that quest.
Yeah, it's like a double card draw because it pulls a Death Rattle minion out of your deck, which is another Dead Ringer or a Loot Hoarder. And then if you pull it back with the Twilight's Call, then it's double card draw again.
Yeah.
So it's almost like quadruple card draw in ideal scenarios. So it doesn't surprise me that the win rate jumps that significantly with that card, because it just is the engine that makes the deck move.
Yep, and that's one of the things about this deck that I love that's on Noblord's side, because we'll talk a lot about Control Priest, one of the most popular decks in the meta right now and in this weekend. But for Topsy Priest, there's not that many, and I think largely because everyone feels like Cloning Gather Priest is a little bit more well-rounded and less one-dimensional in terms of how you combo.
Yeah.
Noblord had an opportunity to seance his own Loot Order and just continuing to draw, because theoretically it's like, well, you just want to keep drawing cards, you want to keep doing that. But Noblord decided instead to Topsy his opponent's his Gluttonous Zoo, so they can reduce the damage, and then choose instead to play it a little bit slower by discovering things like his Vivid Nightmare. And that might unlock more pieces in the future for his combo, because he's actually not too far off almost immediately, as long as he can pair together a few more things. Divine Spirit, another Radiant Elemental Source, and the test subject.
Yeah.
So he's almost done.
He's almost done, but with quite a significant amount of cards left in his deck, it's still a ways off. But, I mean, a lot of the deck is cycles, so every draw gets a piece closer, and Psychic Scream's a good tool to try and stall to get to that point. So I wouldn't call either player out of it just yet.
No, way too early to say. Yeah. And if there's any indication that we've learned from the previous series, It's never truly over till it's over, TJ. No matter how much of a foregone conclusion it may feel and how obvious the plays may be.
Oh, what?
Wow, that's a lot of card draw and a lot of damage.
Yeah. Not going to take the card draw this turn because he'd really just draw one card. It's a potential for 4, but he would really just draw 1. Because he would draw 1, go to full hand, and then discard
at this
3
point,
cards and discard a 4th card. Now,
the problem is though he wants to keep the most amount of pressure on board. So if he goes for a, you know, a Shadow Visions to try and draw even more damage, say his Holy Fire, he ends up removing 5 power on board too. So he's kind of in an interesting spot here.
Yeah, he also stole that second Mind Blast was picked up by the first Shadow Vision. So I don't think he wants to draw too much anyway either, because he wants to be able to get that second Shadow Visions to pick up another Mind Blast. He does it anyway. He realized that, hey, I'm going, oh,
okay.
Shadow Reaper Anduin burned.
That does sting a lot. That stings a lot, TJ.
Oh my goodness, that's so much extra damage over the course of the game that he just gave up.
Yeah, especially with that third Mind Blast. So, I mean, he does have minion pressure through the form of the Cabal Shadow Priest into the Primordial Drakes, but I mean, that Shadow Reaper Anduin's like the way to seal the deal. And now Noblord has a lot more breathing room.
I understand ATC's reasoning. He said, I'm willing to take an extra burn from my deck because it's going to give me a second Mind Blast, or a third Mind Blast. And I'm going in a Psychic Scream turn, so I'm okay killing off my minions because I'm going to reload with pressure anyway. And I don't want my deck diluted with these small minions that are on the board that aren't going to further my game plan as the game goes late. So I understand his reasoning. Just gets probably the worst burn in his deck. Yeah,
I mean, I think a lot of people are going to tunnel in on that and think a few things. One, like, wow, so unlucky. This is why I don't draw, or you don't overdraw. It's not really a statistical probability. Oh, sorry, it's not very likely that ATC is going to burn the Shadow Reaper Anduin. So more often than not, let's say there's 17, 18 cards left in his deck. There's a very low chance that he ends up burning that one card, given that he already has so many good things going.
Oh,
jeez. Alexstrasza and Shadow Reaper Anduin. Those are just 2 critical cards that you need.
Yeah, especially because Topsy-Turvy Priest plays the quest. Alexstrasza is sort of necessary for post-Amara.
Oh my goodness.
Because you want to pressure and force the Priest to use Amara, and then Alexstrasza after that to be able to push pressure. But without Anduin or Alexstrasza, once Amara comes down, I want to say there's almost no way that he gets through that much damage before Noblord picks up the pieces that he needs. There is always a chance, and it's not even as small of a chance as what we saw in the last series with Fibonacci, that Noblord messes up the combo. But Noblord's probably one of the best technical players in the Americas. I imagine he's practiced his deck quite a bit to bring it over Control Priest or Cloning Gallery Priest.
Yeah, I think a lot of people also started shying away from this deck because of just how many sheer misplays we started seeing.
Yeah.
Both on like, oh my god, they messed up the combo, to even just like fundamental, like, oh man, I can't believe like I didn't use my mana correctly in this position, or I was a little bit too bold and I could have survived by 1 HP, which would have given me the turn. Like, this deck plays on a knife's edge 24/7.
Yeah.
And Noblord has pretty much most of the pieces. Needs to find another Radiant Elemental Source, and needs to find a Vivid Nightmare and a Divine Spirit, but that's where things like Thanos can come in. Noblord chose not to play it. I think he ran out of time and he was thinking about it. But, positions like this is where Psychic Scream kind of hurts a lot, so I think he wanted to hedge just a little bit in this position.
Yeah.
And plus, with Shadow Reaper Anduin and Alexstrasza both gone from the deck, and from this game, Noblord, there's probably a high probability that he's okay. Although, if he burned Divine Spirit, that could have been really bad. There's only 1 copy of Divine Spirit.
So if he had burned Divine Spirit,
yeah, he would have been in trouble.
Yeah, you can still complete it with Power Word Shields. It's just very, very difficult, and
you might fatigue out.
You might fatigue out, depending on which order you draw it in and how far your deck, because you need a ton of Power Word Shields in order to get there.
Well, how does ETC pair together something now? I mean, his minion pressure is pretty much evaporated. He could play another Primordial Drake as his best minion, and then his best stats are to just play a couple of small things. But with 3 Mind Blasts, he still can't get there, and he lost Alex Straza as well. I mean, it's not impossible. Again, I mean, we've seen Top Seed Priest kind of sputter out and sometimes even cost the game themselves. But that big difference is Noblord has Amara now, and so a lot of that burst damage can just purely be negated. ETC is in a position where he's gonna have to weave in damage over the course of a few turns, and then Amara just puts it back up.
Yeah, with that, in a world without Shadowy Brandon and Alex Straza, which ETC doesn't have access to because of the burns, he needs to put enough pressure to force Amara, and then find a way to deal after post Amara like 20 damage in order to have enough burn to finish out the game.
Yeah,
it's a very unrealistic scenario.
Is there any card that could help maybe make that difference maker? No, because he's playing the Wild Pyromancer anti-aggro version of this Control Priest, and as a result is not playing Fire Tree Witch Doctor, which allows him to discover spells to potentially get even more damage. But he still has some powerful minions like Twilight Drakes and Scale Worm that's not easily dealt with right now, although Noblord did pick up the Mass Hysteria.
Yeah, just a lot of the cards in Standards aren't doing anything. Not enough pressure, no big minions really. Picks another Primordial Drake, but even then, it's only 4 damage. So he needs to also account for Amara, which he knows is in hand. The quest was completed a while ago. And Noblord's still got plenty of time.
Yeah, it's interesting that Noblord is even just using Mass Hysteria just to remove a 3/3. You know, that's how much he's trying to value, one, his hand space, because he's going to run into hand space issues if he can go for the combo.
Yeah.
And 2, just needs to make sure that a lot of damage is reduced. And he has Psychic Scream as well, so like if he screams this board, it's perfectly fine. Mass Hysteria number 2, that's also okay to use, because if you use Mass Hysteria, your opponent is going to continue to extend onto the board, and then Psychic Scream shuffles everything back in.
Yeah, the one thing though is Noblord's been floating around the play around 4 Mind Blast plan because he can.
Right.
And he does it again here because he saw 2 Shadow Visions. And so it is a realistic possibility that ETC could have 4 Mind Blasts. So you can see there, if he just healed, he would have been at 23. The 4 attack from the Primordial Drake plus 4 Mind Blast would have killed him. So he's kind of playing around worst case scenario here and making sure that he's healthy enough because he doesn't need that much more time. Shadow Visions, there's Divine Spirit and Twilight's Call left in the deck that he still needs. And outside of that, I don't think there's even many more spells. Oh yeah, and there's a Seance for the Amara. So even then, ETC just in a world of trouble.
Yeah, that's what he kept Seance for, because one way that you can free up your hand space and trying to get like your quest done was to test subject and Seance. That's like a very cute move, not really accomplishing too much, but if you in a pinch and you need to like use Power Word Shield, play test subject, Power Word Shield, and Seance, and you end up getting you know, more use out of that card. Now we're not going to even use his Shadow Visions because I think he hasn't narrowed down enough. He needs to guarantee that it's going to be a missing combo piece. So if he picks up like Divine Spirit next turn, he will use it to get Vivid Nightmare, and if he gets Vivid Nightmare, he uses it to get Divine Spirit. Yeah,
which I think if he picks up one of those pieces, then he can just go off because the Shadow Visions will be free once he plays the double Radiant.
Correct. So I think Nabo's on a draw 2 win right now.
Yeah, and the reason why he doesn't play it now is because he doesn't want to find himself in a position where he finds both of his combo pieces in the Shadow Visions, picks one, and then draws that one.
Well, this should be it.
Yeah.
Okay, Nabo's gonna pull the trigger on the Psychic Scream.
There's a small chance that it's not. If he hasn't been keeping good track, I'm pretty sure it's guaranteed at this point. There's one Power Word Shield played, 1 Power Word Shield burned.
No,
one Topsy played, one Topsy in hand.
He only has one Seance, and he has another Shadow Vision, so he could just reroll, but he's just doing it to be extra safe, and the second to last card being Vivid Nightmare means 110% guaranteed. Now it's all about execution and mechanics, and should be fairly straightforward from this position if you're not Lord. And for people who are not familiar with how this combo works, you play all 4 of the minions that you see above you, but test subject returns any spell that you played onto it. And so if you make a copy of it, you can get twice the amount of spells, but you also get Vivid Nightmare back. So you just keep copying test subject over and over while stacking Divine Spirits on the Stone Tusk Boar, and finally the last Turvy will flip the Stone Tusk Boar for, you know, literally infinite damage as long as you have the time to do it. Now, the one caveat to this is hand space. I have seen people overextend and eventually not get the last Topsy-Turvy.
Yeah.
Because they have too many Divine Spirits and Vivid Nightmares. So that's why it is fairly important to get hand space. I mean, even to the point where you can get away with throwing this second test subject onto the board. But if this goes to 16, he can just Topsy it and then Vivid Nightmare twice. And
call it a day.
The rope's burning, but I mean, it should be okay here if you're Knob Lord.
Yeah, we see the animations slower than they happen on Knob Lord screens since he's the one making the actions. Yeah. So a lot of times with Topsy Priest, you'll see the rope at the very end burning for a good